Welcome to the Michelle Mission, Two Men, One Podcast, every black film ever made. My name is Vincent Williams, and I'm joined as always by my partner.
Hey, what's up? Holler at your boy. This is Len, aka the Bat Tribble.
And on this stop of the mission, we will begin our yearly exploration into the world of Afrofuturism with Afrofuturism April, and we will begin the journey tonight with 1983's Born in Flames, a film written by Ed Bowles and directed by Lizzie Borden. But before we get to that, Mr. Webb, I believe we have some business to attend to.
We do, which always begins with welcoming each and every one of you out there watching us streaming live on Facebook and on YouTube. Thanks for taking the time to sit in with Vince and I as we get together to review every black film ever made. Shout out to Deborah Battle and Aaron Fry, first in the chats with their hellos. So, hello.
Hey, what's going on, folks?
Long time no talk to. How you doing, Vince? How's life treating you, brother?
Life is fine. I just told you I got my second vaccination shot yesterday, and I was holding my breath for that 24 hours. They said, you know, some people have got knocked out after the second shot.
Yes.
And then I was super paranoid when I realized, well, is it 24 hours after the shot that people got sick? Or was it 24 hours later?
And then they got sick.
And then they got sick. So I was all paranoid. But I have to say, I'm feeling good. Feeling good. It's like I was telling my friends earlier, I like have a Charlie horse pain in my arm, but not a bee sting. It's not like a bee sting. So, you know, if you press like, oh, something happened. But yeah, I'm feeling great. I'm vaccinated, and I'm now 13 days away from running outside and chewing gum from underneath the tables and grabbing people's sodas and drinking after them, which I believe is how it works. I believe Dr. Fauci said that.
Yes, Dr. Fauci did say that was fine. I just got my first shot yesterday. Yesterday is Monday. Yes, right. I got it yesterday. And it was interesting because I went to the Black Doctors Consortium. They were giving out the vaccines shots here in Philadelphia all this week at the Deliverance Church on Lehigh Avenue. And they are specifically giving the Moderna vaccine and the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. And the majority of the people there were getting the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Myself and a friend to the show, Ariel Johnson, we specifically wanted the Moderna vaccine. And in full transparency, the reason why we wanted the Moderna vaccine is because Ariel saw that Dolly Parton was one of the backers of the Moderna vaccine. She's a big subscriber to, like, if Dolly says it's cool, you know, all my research says Dolly is cool. So if she says it's cool, right. It's cool. So and I said, well, if Dolly says it's cool and you say it's cool, then that's where I'm going. So I went and got the Moderna shot. And lo and behold, wake up this morning, and which vaccine has been put on pause, and they stopped vaccinating people with it, but the Johnson & Johnson one. So that was actually very interesting. I actually, when I got, and mind you, this is only the first shot, and from what I understand, it's the second shot that kind of like gets, that hits people hard. But I could have blinked and missed when she poked me. I didn't even notice it. Doubt. And then I've been fine. I have not had an ill effect since then. Meanwhile, Ariel, she texted me earlier today. She was laid up all day with a massive migraine because of it. But so I guess, you know, it hits people different ways. But I'm very excited that I got it. Now I go back in May to get the second shot. So, and then, which may, you know, God willing, open the doors to me and you, Vince, once again returning to the sanctums of one podcast table between us.
Back in stride again, just like Maze featuring Frankie Beverly.
Oh, wow. Wow. Maze featuring Frankie Beverly. There you go. I like that. I like that. All right. So we got some letters, Vince, while we were away.
Right.
We got a couple of emails.
All right.
We received an email from Monique Martin. Hit us up.
Hey, Monique.
She says, "Good day, gentlemen. I really enjoyed the Michaud Mission podcast. I discovered it 2 months ago, and I really enjoyed the review of movies. Some I am familiar with and some I'm not. You guys are so funny. I would really like to hear your review of Meteor Man." Starring and directed by Robert Townsend. I really, you don't say. I really love that movie, and I can't find it anywhere. This movie had such amazing cast: Robert Townsend, Marla Gibbs, James Earl Jones, Bill Cosby, Don Cheadle, Eddie Griffin, Sinbad, Big Daddy Kane, the dearly departed Nancy Wilson, and Robert Guillaume, Luther Vandross, and Wanda Page, Tyna Lister, just to name a few. I don't know what more there is left. Looking forward each week to a new episode of Black Movies that were made and to your reviews. Thanks. Monique Martin, all the way from Brooklyn, New York.
Brooklyn, the planet. Well, welcome, Monique, and as a new missionary, there are certain aspects of Michaud Mission culture that perhaps you haven't caught up on yet. And Lynn, would you like to illuminate?
Well, I'll just put it this way.
Man within the mythos of the Michaud Mission.
I'll just put it this way, Monique. I'm glad that you are enjoying our review of movies, because you will have the opportunity to enjoy our review of every other Black movie ever made before you hear our review of Meteor Man. And this is because on it's three occasions. Three times we have sat down, each time with a special guest, to review Meteor Man, only for something to happen and the recording just not come out usable. So yes, different guests. That's true. So it has now been decreed that Meteor Man will be the very last film that we review. So we're going to get there.
We're going to get there, but no time soon. Look forward to the review of Black Panther 3 before Meteor Man.
Black Panther 3 Ghost Protocol. Before we get to who knows? We might even review the reboot of Meteor Man before we
do actual Meteor Man. The 7 Heartbeats. Who are those guys?
Oh God.
But thank you, and welcome. Thank you and welcome, Monique.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We also heard from H. Giardina, who gave us a 5-star review on iTunes, Vince.
Oh, thank you, H. Giardina.
They say, fantastic podcast. Vince and Len are great hosts. I love the ambition of this project, and I love the insightful, deep, and often hilarious discussions around classic films and deep cuts alike. If you're looking for a place to start, I highly suggest the Body and Soul episode, which gives great insight into the story and history of the podcast's namesake, the great Oscar Michaud.
Oh, Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you. And that is a good recommendation for people.
Yeah. Thank you and welcome. Thank you and welcome.
And we got one more notice, Vince, and this one came by way of Twitter.
Okay.
And this is from longtime fan of the show, Chris Ali.
Hey, what's up, Chris?
Who says, reaching out to tell you how much I love the Ghost Dad episode. However, man, there is a consistent observation and critique you brothers address, and that is the issue of colorism. As a light-skinned, proud black man, I would like to raise the point that it's apparent you brothers find an issue with Cosby portraying light-skinned talent on screen. I was curious if you brothers could give a little conversation to that topic. Devoted missionary, proud to know and love your podcast. Y'all represent us well. Much respect, Micho Men.
I don't even think it's controversial to say that colorism is an issue with black people. I think, frankly, colorism is an issue across the board, but we talk about black folks. And I do think that if you look at Bill Cosby's career in totality,
okay,
this is something that has come up with him, that he tends to favor lighter skinned black talent. And I think it's not even a matter of levels of talent. Like someone like, like I think Lisa Bonet was an actual talent.
Mm-hmm.
Like I thought Lisa Bonet very much had an it factor. And as someone who, it's so funny, I just saw an interview with Malcolm Jamal Warner earlier today, talking about just having kids and post everything with Cosby, dealing with the Cosby Show, and ultimately falling down on the side of watching the Cosby Show. And as someone who kind of unapologetically still studies the Cosby Show, I think from the very beginning, someone like Lisa Bonet had that it factor.
Okay.
Having said that, there are other examples, and I think we talked about it in Ghost Dad, frankly, where the talent is not there.
Right.
And I think there are people who get roles. And again, I'm not going to go through Cosby's career with a fine-tooth comb. I will just say this. We weren't the first or fifth people to point this out, where you see people in roles where he had decision-making power. Mm-hmm. And I think it's fair to ask, is this an example of an aspect of our culture that we need to always check? So I don't know if that's enough context.
But to be fair, let me ask you this. When you say that this has been something that has been addressed and brought up as an issue in regards to Bill Cosby and his career, are you saying that this is something that that you have noticed or other people have noticed and you've seen it commented on?
I think there was a fair amount of criticism in the 80s.
Okay.
Around the Cosby Show, around Different World, and then there were retroactive discussions about his pre-Cosby Show work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then sort of afterwards about this issue.
Okay.
And frankly, I think the kind of conversations that we have about somebody like Kenya Barris around this same
mm-hmm.
issue, the foundation is the Cosby criticism. So, look, I think it's a read. I tend to go along with that read. I think it's something we always need to keep track of. I think it is very much an issue in our art.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
just to build out from Bill Cosby, and I think that is why creators like a Issa Rae or a Tyler Perry
Yeah.
really
Give him
kind of
his,
really kind of get this acclaim that they get because they're within the context of so many parts of our culture where, let's be clear, where black men are in positions to make casting decisions,
mm-hmm.
make these casting decisions along the paper bag rule. So,
Okay, wait a minute. I just want to make sure that I'm understanding it correctly. When you mentioned Issa Rae and Tyler Perry.
yes, I think those are two creators who have very deliberately cast brown or black actresses.
Okay, all right. I thought that's what you were saying. I just wanted
Yeah.
to make sure. I just wanted to make sure that's what you're saying. Yeah, and then I do think that as more and more black creatives are exercising their power behind the camera, and making names for themselves thereof in that sphere, I think you do see it slowly being reflected in front of the camera. You know what I mean?
Right.
I was actually just thinking about a show that has brought up a little bit of an issue as of late, on that premiered on Amazon recently. Them, which is a new show from writer, executive producer Little Melvin, and it's kind of like it's going to be an anthology type of show, but it's an anthology like horror series set in the 50s. But for all the hubbubaloo that show has created, because there's maybe a subject to be talked about, the monetization of black misery or black pain that series deals in. It is also still a series that is decidedly about a black family, and every member of that black family is a deep brown skinned person, mother, father, and the two daughters. And that was one of the first things that kind of like resonated with me when I watched the first episode. I was like, okay, well, you know what? I'm here for the brownness, though. I'm here for that.
Right.
I'm liking that. So I do think, like you said, to your point, that as more people are behind the camera exercising their power, you'll see that more reflected in the casting. Have you had an opportunity to check out Them? I think you said you haven't, right?
Yeah, I haven't. I'm a little behind. I just settled down and watched King Kong versus Godzilla the other night. So
what?
I know. Look, we can stay on topic, but yeah, I just did. You know what happened? I got caught out. You don't want to watch it.
Oh.
So I had to wait. Like I had to find that moment where the both of us
right
sit for 2 hours
mm-hmm.
and watch.
Well, we're both Godzilla fans, but you're the kaiju master here.
Look, we can stay with them. We ain't got to talk about Godzilla, and we don't got to talk about.
All right. That'll be trailer talk. That'll be trailer talk.
Right, stay on course. Right, go ahead. Them, but no, I haven't seen it. You have.
Well, I haven't watched the whole thing. I did watch the first episode, and while I can't knock that I can't say that it's a badly made show. It is. I will say that you do have to be in a certain headspace to deal with some of these things, because it's a horror show, but it does kind of take the reality of racism, especially at the time where it's set in the 50s, and the locale where it's set, like the whole great migration that took place out into California and into the areas of what is, Compton, before it was the Compton as we know it, it takes the reality of that and turns it to a more horrific and supernatural bent and makes it even all the more icky and creepy, which I think is what gives people like gets in people's feels about it. You know, it doesn't,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because to me, when you think of something like, well, to me, when I think of something like Watchmen, which everybody celebrated, which was a big introduction to a lot of people, black and white, about the horror that happened in Black Wall Street back in the early part of the century. While that is very much a part of the tale of Watchmen, it doesn't necessarily become the tale. You know what I mean? They reach from there and then and mix in more with fantasy and try to pull just story threads from it. And they also try to show the other side of the coin. This show, which mind you, I watched the first episode and maybe like a little part of the second episode, so it's maybe not fair to gauge it with this broad of a brush, but it seems to just double down on the oppressiveness of the racism of that moment. And then while yes, it does put some supernatural, coatings on it, it's still just very much, it's just like, it's just racism stepping on your neck and then putting the other foot on your neck and then having somebody hold your arms down and just like, eat this racism. And it was like, yo, man, like I am not in the headspace for this right now, man. And I don't know if I ever would be in the headspace for this. And it's a shame because it's a good cast, but I don't know if I ever would be in the headspace for this, man. It's just, it's a little rough. And so I think that's what gets in people's feelings about, this being now the new norm.
Right.
Of what is, I assume people are saying they see in a lot of the more genre type fiction that is featuring Black people,
Sure.
It's almost like people are maybe taking the wrong lessons from Get Out and Us and things of that nature.
Yeah. You never want to limit people.
Yeah. And
you never want to tell creators this is off limits. But at the same time, you do have to ask, what do you bring to this?
Mm-hmm.
A setting like the 50s and racism in the 50s, you and I, or rather I've kind of rolled my eyes over the years. White people going to keep making movies about World War II from now on. Like baby boom, like it's a baby boom. Like Tom Hanks and Ron Howard are somewhere right now dealing with the treatment for the fill in the blank of the greatest generation with some brave white guys in World War II. And I guess my question, much like I have for them, is it's just a setting, but what do you bring new to this setting?
What new do you have to say about it?
What new do you have to say? And I haven't seen them, although I've heard almost unanimously the same critique that you just had. I don't know if I've heard one critique of them that someone said this is a worthy addition to Black storytelling, frankly. Mm-hmm. And this is just anecdotally and just reading reviews and things. And I always wonder who is the audience, because as you said, as a Black audience, we have enough trauma just every day, and just in our like we don't need this trauma as entertainment. So
Right.
if the black audience is your audience, what do you think you're bringing to them? And if the white audience is your projected audience, then now we have to have a whole different conversation
Mm-hmm.
about black pain as entertainment for this white audience.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to see different things. And it's funny, you mentioned the two films by Jordan Peele, Get Out and Us, both very much black horror films,
Right.
very different from one another. Both of
Yes.
them very different from the original Candyman, which Nia DaCosta is remaking, which I suspect will be different from the first two films that I mentioned, as well as Candyman.
Mm-hmm.
All of those different from something like Beloved, which we've talked about, which is a period piece.
Yes. Yes.
So all of them different from Lovecraft Country, which had a lot of elements of horror
Right.
and was also a period piece. So I do think there's a way to do it. I just think, and again, I haven't seen them, so I don't know, but I do. I am looking forward to more projects that go beyond the pain, if you will,
Right.
beyond the pain. And, even something like I was never a big fan of a film like Saw, which in
Mm-hmm.
my mind was just sort of porn, or just pornographic with the way it fetishized pain and all of this stuff. And I certainly don't want to see a black version of it. But I think conversations like this are healthy. Like I think this push and pull, and I have to say I haven't read any interviews with the makers of them. And I think isn't Lena Waithe the producer?
She's an executive producer. Yeah.
Executive producer. And something like, wait, that wasn't Lena Waithe that produced Bad Hair, was it? That was Justin Simien.
Yeah, that was Justin Simien. Right.
Justin Simien, another horror movie, very much black, but it was doing different things.
It was doing different things, and while black culture was a seed for it, it still was just a horror film that just featured black people and black culture. It wasn't like it wasn't porn. It wasn't fetishizing
Right.
it. It was
Right.
taking an aspect of our culture and having fun with it.
And again, I think there are a lot of aspects of black culture you can pull from
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
make a specifically black film
Mm-hmm.
and build horror into it, if you will.
And to be fair, there are I believe that there are instances in our history in that you can also pull from and make into horror. It's you just got to be a little, maybe, I don't know. Like you said, you and I also was on that fence. Like you want to give creatives the opportunity to tell their tales, especially if you see that it is a black creative that is doing this, like Little Melvin,
Sure.
the writer director of it. So you want to give them the opportunity to tell a story, but and he can't help the time into which it is released and what has been going on, lately in these streets, that doesn't, just makes it just like even more of a doubling down on what's going on. Like, dude, like, we don't need this because it's right there in the streets. It's right there on the news. You know what I mean?
And frankly, I reserve the right, as all members of audiences, to reserve the right. I'm just not messing with that. Like, I have to protect my own headspace.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're talking about them. I just watched a trailer on Netflix. They're doing an adaptation of the Walter Dean Myers YA novel, Monster.
Mm-hmm.
And just watching the trailer, and Jeffrey Wright is in it, and it looks fantastic and it's beautiful. And I did, when the trailer went off, I actually, I'm not watching that.
Right.
Like, I'm not watching that. Like I have to protect my own head.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of this stuff that you know, I do. I also like the fact that so many of us as Black people are pushing back against this notion that we have to uncritically accept our pain on screen.
Right, right,
You,
right.
you know, again, I think it's a very fine line between you have to document and this is entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I were talking before we started taping. This is something that has always been part of the conversation about Black art. Like you know, I'm teaching Frederick Douglass right now, Frederick Douglass's slave narrative. And there's this extraordinary passage at the end of the book. This is let me see, Douglass, I think this is like 17 something. No, Douglass,
It's
because
like
I'm
18.
I was about to say it's like 1845.
Right.
But he has this whole sequence about slave narratives and the pain of slaves as entertainment for these white, because you know it's just white people reading slave narratives.
Mm-hmm.
And even then he was walking this fine line
Right.
between I want to document what happened, but I am very uncomfortable and you should be uncomfortable with my pain as entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
And this is 1845.
Right.
And we're still kind of having these same conversations. So that again, I would never ever say when they see us isn't a phenomenal and important work. But at the same time, I am like, I don't, well, and even with apparently them, which again, I've not seen, this slew of just sort of Black pain projects, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Miss Makiba hits us up and says the at Kev on Stage Studios app is a Black trauma free space focusing on curating hashtag digital Black joy. Mm-hmm.
hey, speaking of Kenya Barris, my favorite Black mogul, I'm sure many of you saw, Marseille Martin said that when people bring projects to her office to pitch, which let's just take a moment, everybody just sit in that Marseille Martin has offices that
Let the people know who may not know who Marseille Martin is.
plays Diane on Blackish, the younger daughter.
The youngest on Blackish. Well,
Right,
the
right.
youngest of the one of
I
the
was about
twins.
to say right now they got the baby, but yeah, who was a little girl and now has grown into this extraordinary young woman and creator and producer. And she said her rule is no Black pain.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm. Amen. Amen. Well, Vince, we heard from Miss Makiba, which means that it is now officially.
that's right. We can get into the work.
We can get into the work. You know what? I really think she times it. She's like, yeah, they've talked long enough. Let me say something real quick, so I can just.
Hey, remember we got the letter last year, a couple of years ago, where the missionary said we should put a marker
Yes.
for when the
Can y'all put a marker when the actual review will start? Because
right. Because I'm
I
gonna
don't
go and
really.
get. Well, let's get to the work.
Let's get to the work. Well, real quick, just one last comment. Robert
Okay.
Monroe Jr. said that he had to turn off Antebellum. It got to the point where I was just too stressed watching it. I may return to it someday, but some stuff is just too real for me to watch, whether as a movie or as on the news. Robert Monroe Jr., as someone who watched and finished Antebellum, I will say that you did yourself a favor, my friend.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Monique, we're going to review that before we do Meteor Man.
So you got that to look forward to. All right. But for now, let's get into our review of Born in Flames. But now it's time for trailer talk. This is when me and
Now
Vince
it's time for trailer talk.
talk to each other about whatever we want to, because this will all get cut out of the finished podcast, because this is where the trailer is going to run. And Vince, you saw Godzilla versus Kong. Go.
I think the challenge in all of the kaiju movies, back to Gojira, frankly, is striking the balance between the humans and the monsters.
Right.
I think that's always, and then from film to film to film, the best ones have that balance down pat. And the problem that I found with King Kong versus Godzilla, first and foremost, was the ratio was off. Way too many people. And the problem is they had, like, you know, it's like Millie Brown is in it, Brian Tyree Henry is in it. Like, they have these actual good actors in it. And they're like, okay, well, we got to give them stuff to do. And then everybody, we're here for Kong, we're here for Godzilla, we're here for the worst kept secret in nerddom, we're here for Mechagodzilla. Like, that's what we're here for.
Okay, all right.
Like Brian Tyree Henry, he's got his little ticks and this, that, and the other. That's nice, but we're not really here for all that. I think the other problem that happens that this film had was this is another film that is a victim of the Marvel movie phenomenon.
Okay.
Where I think 20 years in, has it been 20 years since
Yes.
Iron Man? Yeah, 20 years in, I think
everyone, 20 years. It's been maybe
yeah, we're knocking on it. Every genre property feels like they have to have this whole universe,
right,
for their characters to inhabit. And the problem is, I don't get the sense that the various makers of the pieces, Kong Skull Island, Godzilla King of the Monsters, the first Godzilla, I don't know how sketched out everything was from the beginning. So that a lot of the world building in this with the Hollow Earth, like I know they referenced the Hollow Earth in Skull Island. They talked about I think they talked about a little bit in King of the Monsters. But it seemed like people understood that this was supposed to be almost the Avengers of the franchise. Like, this is the big one we were waiting for. And then they had to build up all this stuff so that ultimately I liked it, I guess. But for a film that was called King Kong versus Godzilla, I felt like it should have been more King Kong versus Godzilla.
See, I totally disagree with you because...
Oh, excellent.
One, because I think they did seed it through all of the films. You don't want to be too deliberate because especially with the first one, Godzilla, you don't want to hit it too hard on the nose because, heaven forbid, the movie is not the success that you want, and then you don't ever get to the other pieces. Then you just got a dangling participle out there. So they seed it a little bit, and then Godzilla is enough of a hit that they think, okay, we can retool some things and we can keep on our way to where we want to go. And they get Kong Skull Island, which seeds in it a little bit more, and they take actually a risk at that because that is a prequel because it takes place back before Godzilla. Yeah, so I think the world building in this, once they were assured that, okay, we think we're on solid ground to get to where we want to go, which is Godzilla versus King Kong, I think they built it pretty solidly. And now one may argue in that Godzilla King of Monsters, did they maybe blow their load with all of the monsters that are in there with Godzilla? Maybe, but I would say it's only but so long they can chance before getting to the big battle royal everybody wants to go to, and they just get everybody else out of the way. So let's get them all out of the way out here, prove who Godzilla is, and King Kong, we already know that King Kong is waiting for him at the top of the mountain to see who's going to rule the roost, right? So that world building is done great. Yes, did the last one have to kind of touch on the humans that were parts of all of those movies making their way up to? Yeah, just a little bit, kind of like, justify people's paychecks a little bit, and that's fine. At the end of the day, did they really make that big of a difference in the movies? No. Outside of one guy having a jump start King Kong? Not really. Hold on to that thought. I'll be right back. Keep them entertained.
What is that? What is that? This is the type of rank non-professionalism that I have to deal with. I'm so glad that you all are seeing this in real time. Lynn has left me on air by myself to just start talking, and now he's left. So, what should we talk about when Lynn is gone? Now that Lynn is gone. Okay, let's see what we should talk about. Let's talk. Oh, he's back. All right. Everybody, be quiet. Don't say nothing. Look at you. Look at you. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Have you fallen out?
Okay. Okay.
What are you doing?
I'm back.
What are you doing? What is that?
I had to plug in my laptop, and my plug was in the other room.
Who could have imagined that your laptop would need to be plugged in for this?
I forgot I didn't have it plugged in.
Just unprofessional. Terrible.
At least it happened during trailer talk.
Right? Amateurism.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that HBO scout just dropped out of the chat. Oh, well.
He had like the boyish and crossed our names out. And he left the stadium real dramatically.
Oh, man. So anyway, I thought the world building was great in this. Yes, the humans, they're there, but they don't get in the way. And as far as King Kong versus Godzilla, there was plenty of King Kong versus Godzilla. And it was great. They was fighting underwater. They was fighting on boats. They was fighting in the cities. They was fighting in the mountains. They were going toe to toe. King Kong was swinging an axe all over the place. Godzilla was giving each other hands. They was getting it in, and everybody's heart is with King Kong, and that's the way it should be.
Because Godzilla is just a hooligan. Like, Godzilla has no chill.
That's right, he don't. And that's why Godzilla beat King Kong's ass 2 times in this movie.
Right.
2 times. Like, when they came up with the idea of like, yo, let's everybody play dead and turn off the switches, Godzilla was laying there, was like, shit, I ain't gotta play. I'm right here. I'm like, I'm going to sleep. Night. Because he was not ready. He was not ready for that. Godzilla stood on King Kong's chest and said, stay down. And Kong said, yes, sir. Yes, sir. I loved every single solitary minute of that. Oh, my God. I was so good. And your best kept secret, Me, I purposefully, when I watch a movie, I watch the first trailer and then I don't watch anything. If I know I want to see it, I don't watch anything else. I don't read any
you
news.
Know Mechagodzilla was coming?
I did not know Mechagodzilla was coming. When Mechagodzilla came, I squealed like a little like whatever. I just like, oh, it's Mechagodzilla. And I was just like, oh my God. I was so freaking happy. And yo, I loved every freaking moment of this movie. It was so, I watched this movie 4 times. I love this movie. God, it was so, you know why I watched it 4 times? Because it's not 2 hours. It's an hour, 53 minutes. It's the perfect length for this film, Zack Snyder. This was fantastic. I loved every freaking, there was nothing wrong. I mean, it's a kaiju movie. It's a kaiju movie, dog. Like, you know, you want some people, I saw some people arguing about Hollow Earth. How does Hollow Earth work? Who gives a fuck? It's a kaiju movie. It's just, you're gonna start worrying about that.
Oh, nerds ruin everything.
See, Miss McKeeva says she does the same. No reviews, no behind the scenes, straight to it. Oh, I like me some Miss McKeeva. Robert Monroe Jr. says, my Roku started halfway through Godzilla vs. Kong, and it was the perfect excuse to stop watching the movie. I was fed up with the dialogue, being so by the numbers. I would say lines before the actors. Who worries about the lines in Godzilla vs. King Kong?
Yeah.
Are you serious, Robert Monroe?
Well, in his defense, if you've got Brian Tyree Henry in there, you're begging me to pay attention.
Please. Brian Tyree Henry was there probably because he loves kaiju movies too.
I know, probably. It's like when those people show up in Star Trek stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yes. You know what I mean? But seriously, who is going to rob a Godzilla or a King Kong movie and say, this dialogue just doesn't ring true? This doesn't sound like nobody. Who's having that conversation?
Meanwhile, Godzilla's walking behind them.
Exactly. Godzilla's walking behind them, drop kicking King Kong, and King Kong's sign language and get your foot off my chest.
Oh.
But the dialogue was unrealistic. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it as much as you did. Your enjoyment is now infectious. Maybe I should revisit it.
You should. You know what? You got to watch it with your boys. If you watch it with your boys, you will like. So you watch it with Camille, and that's fine. That's fine. You watch it with your baby girl. Watch it with your boys.
I may have had a cocktail while I was watching too.
Well, I
may have gone and gotten another cocktail after that first one.
Okay. All right. So. Yeah. You need to watch it again, bro.
Okay. All right. You have sold me.
All right. Bree 517 said, come for the professionalism, stay for the comedy.
There you go.
And on that note, with my computer nicely charging up.
Yes, plugged in and all.
Let's get into our review of 1983's Born in Flames.
All right.
And you can
Born in Flames, a 1983 film by Lizzie Borden. In a world set 10 years after the most peaceful revolution in United States history, the United States is presented as a dystopia in which the issues of many groups, minorities, liberals, gay rights organizations, feminists, are dealt with by the government. Directed by Lizzie Borden and written by Ed Bowes, this is the first film in Afrofuturism April, and it was the choice of Lynn Webb. Lynn, what say you of 1983's Born in Flames?
This is a film that is done in documentary style, ladies and gentlemen. Even though it is 100% a fictitious story, it is a Afrofuturistic tale in that it proposes a future of America, specifically New York, in it would be 1993. The film's made in 1983.
Mm-hmm.
And it proposes that to a degree, the more things change, such as this peaceful revolution called the War of Liberation, which basically sees the United States government become a socialist democracy, the more that those things change, the more they still kind of stay the same. And that the country is still grappling with racism, sexism, classism, is battling with a whole lot of things. But it also is primarily, at least my read on this film, is dealing with the marginalization of women, and women of all colors, shapes, sizes, and sexual sex or sexual choices or lifestyles, as it were. And in doing so, and taking and having that be front and center on this film, I think that is why this film has been heralded and championed as a almost feminist manifesto in their community ever since it hit the screens in 1983. A lot of times you have to, when you watch films like this, and we've mentioned it before with particularly with The Watermelon Woman, you've got to remember the times in which these films are made and how groundbreaking just the subject matter of these films are for the big screen. This is a film that speaks openly of two feminist groups who become the leading underground voices for everything, against everything that is wrong in America. And these groups are led by pirate radio. Remember radio, Vince? Remember pirate radio? By two pirate radio troops. One group led by Isabel, who was a very outspoken white lesbian. The other group led by Honey, who is she's African American. Almost strikes me a little bit of something with some of the trappings that she wears in the more, I don't want to say, she sometimes come across with like a harder edge to her as far as her trappings, but she definitely is softer speaking, but is very, very pro-women. Both groups are very pro-women, but they're attacking the problems from different sides of the coin, as you were. And caught in the middle is Adelaide, who is, a believer, wanting to believe in the rights for women, regardless of their color, regardless of their sexuality, who is following the trappings of there's Zella, who is this kind of like secret underground leader of this woman's army, and who was portrayed by Flo Kennedy, who was definitely a name, activist name of note back in the 70s and 80s. Adelaide is like a devotee of Zella. Like, many scenes with her are literally her sitting at the foot of Zella and just listening to her speak her truth about, the role of women in America and the role of women in just society, period. Um, and all of that makes for a very interesting narrative as these two factions fight against the government, which, while it's a socialist democracy, is still very much led by men, still very much led by white men, who are seeking to impose, their wills, their thoughts upon the population of women, and sprinkle them little nuggets here and there, like, oh, it's about time that women get paid for housework. And that is only after taking away many of the jobs that women have fought long for in the wake of this war of liberation. And all of that makes for a really interesting storyline for this film that, like I mentioned, is told documentary style. So it's told with quote unquote news clippings, news reports on television, people reporting, what happened in the War of Liberation, the ongoings of the government, the actions of the Women's Army, who are branded as vigilantes because they dare to stop violence in the street against women. In non-violent means. There's a woman that is attacked on the street, openly on the street, screaming at the top of her lungs on the street. She's attacked by two men, and no one comes to her rescue except the Women's Army comes riding up on their bicycles and just blowing whistles, just to make it that much louder of a scene until the men are more or less shamed to run away. And yet they are the ones that are branded as vigilantes for this act, and the people that need to be shut down. And these two factions are at war, trying to find, what is the right way to enact some change in this society until they actually do take the bull by the horns. They actually do get guns and feel like they have to really take this movement one step forward. And that also is in the wake of, again, Adelaide, who was our window into this world, who suffers what is really a bit of a heartbreaking tragedy becomes her in this film, and basically loses her life. I'll say that without spoiling it to say how she loses her life. But it is definitely tragic the way that she does lose her life, and she becomes a more or less a martyr for this movement that propels the last third, or maybe like the last 20 minutes of the film. And that makes for a very interesting narrative. That makes for an interesting story. That makes for a movie that is rightfully championed as this feminist manifesto, like I mentioned, that Born in Flames is. But for me, watching the film, I struggled to pull that out of the narrative of this film, because the narrative is hidden to me in the stylistic choices of this film. By it being in documentary style, and like a lot of documentaries, it turns into almost a collage of different disjointed scenes that you're asked to track the narrative through. These disjointed scenes become hard to track. Many of them don't have any dialogue. Many of them do not have any true introduction to the characters, how the characters are relating to one another. Many of them are just stock footage. You can tell that there's stock footage that has just kind of been repurposed to mean something in this film. So there's a scene of people marching through the streets, and then there's a voiceover that says, "Oh, this is the Women's Army marching." Doesn't really say what they are, and you're not really introduced to who in this screen we're supposed to be relating to, yet somehow we're supposed to be relating to someone in here because they're part of the narrative. And that disjointedness, and that also because some of the dialogue, now here the dialogue, unnatural, does not fit well, because in a documentary, even a documentary style, the dialogue should either be informing the narrative or informing the mission. But but in doing so, it has to be in a way that we can catch on to what is being said and what it means to the story that is being told. A lot of this dialogue comes off as very speechifying, which at times then just kind of becomes like a metronome in my ear, and I just lose the context of what they're saying. It becomes almost like a word salad, and I'm not really grasping at what they're getting. It's only, I think, in that last 20, 25 minutes when Adelaide's loss propels the characters in the story to kind of like coalesce. Yeah, the factions kind of like now come together on one theme. Now there's a story to track, because that last part is pretty much straight narrative. It's not so much, cut to this rally, cut to this newsmaker, cut to various scenes of just women just being in this space and women working or women just walking down the street. It's not disjointed scenes. It actually is a narrative. So I'm able to track that, but the road to there was difficult for me, and it made me wow, I really want to champion for this film, and I really just can't. I'm not. It's not hitting me. I'm not feeling invested in what it's trying to tell me and what it's trying to teach me.
I disagree with your main critique that it was hard to kind of follow the plot. And I disagree that you found it hard to follow, because I know you well enough and I know the type of things that you have watched and read. This is, in a lot of ways, superficially, a very standard science fiction storyline. It's a dystopia that has the veneer of a utopia. It's in documentary style. The film starts. It's the 10-year anniversary of the Great Revolution. And in the documentary style, it is saying we shall now basically talk about the celebration of our great victory 10 years ago over our enemies, if you will. And regardless of what your experience is with science fiction, if you will, whether you read 1984 in high school or you saw the Hunger Games movies, I actually think it's pretty easy to get the broad strokes fairly early. Like this is what this is. And for me, I could then let go of the particularities of it, if you will, which I think you're right. Like you get the sense that manifesto is the right word to use when you talk about this film. You get the sense that Ed Bowes and Lizzie Borden had this really well thought out list of political aims that they're going to achieve with this film. And speaking of George Orwell, whether we're talking, something like Animal Farm or 1984, which I think is the same thing. They know that it's easier for people to take it in the guise of a story.
Right.
So that I think what I admired about this film was a couple of things. First of all, I actually liked some of the style choices. Like we're saying, it was in documentary style, but they're, like you said, they actually staged fake television shows. There is cinema verite with some of the characters and their lives. I love.
Well, yeah, I'll give you that. Yeah.
I loved a couple of the montages of women's work,
Mm-hmm.
where you have these wonderful montages where they show close-ups of women's hands doing all of this different type of activity, including a woman putting a condom on a man.
Which I have actually never seen a film of.
Right. Well, me either, but you and I have never engaged in women's work just by definition.
Right.
And I thought that part of it was admirable. Whether or not the execution succeeded or not, I think obviously is subjective. But there's like surveillance footage that they used at one point, and much like our conversation with Watermelon Woman, I admire a filmmaker that tries to do different things. So that part I actually really enjoyed. And then as far as within the context of our conversation, and is this Afrofuturism? In my mind, when we talk about Afrofuturism and something set in the future, one of our baseline conversations is about representation.
Yes.
So it's the Uhura thing. You've now shown the future. Are Black people there?
Right.
Which in itself, I think, is always worthy of acknowledging, especially from a film from 1983. Second, in my mind, not only are Black people there, is Black culture there.
Mm-hmm.
So sticking with Star Trek, one of my favorite moments of the entire Star Trek series, all of them, I think last season or the season before last, there's an episode of Discovery where the crew was having a party and they played a Fugees.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
So I'm one of my real bugaboos about science fiction is they show somebody in the future and they show that they're iconoclastic and they're a badass. They're always listening to like Led Zeppelin or something. Mm-hmm. Like it's always some boomer rock that survives. So I love the fact that Black women were so integral to this plot. Like you said, you've got the main character, you've got the lawyer character, like it's just Black women throughout. And then I have to say, as a feminist manifesto, frankly, written by a white woman, I was impressed by the intersectionality of it, frankly. Like there's sort of that typical white feminist control your fertility, we want jobs.
Right.
But there was so much in there that was about sexism towards lesbians. There was so much about sexism across class lines. Like it wasn't just I want to work, but the type of jobs that you have. There was so much about, frankly, Blackness. They talked about racism within. Yeah. There's a moment where the army is giving out flyers, and the flyers have a list of issues that the woman's army wants to address. And I wrote down, like, the list is actually pretty extraordinary. The list is, they want to talk about cutbacks on daycare centers, which now you folded in this issue of motherhood and how to do it. End of free abortions, which seems like a kind of straight ahead feminist issue in 1983. Forced sterilization of minority women, which I thought was extraordinary for that to be on the list, that they said this is something we have to address.
Mm-hmm.
because as something that was made in 1983, well into the 70s, a lot of states were sterilizing minority women, specifically black women. And this was a real issue. Discrimination against single women slash lesbians in housing, huge issue for black women in housing, And then finally, the firing of single women in favor of men with families in jobs.
Right, that was a big one. Yeah.
And there's so much, there's a moment where a sister from the Sahara comes over, and you have these two black women talking about the commonality between their issues. So it's almost like some Pan-Africanism for a moment. And I just really admired the thoughtfulness of it, especially within the context of what's happened. Like, this is 1983. Just to kind of give it some context, 2 years after that, a novel that I despise, it's like white feminism, the science fiction novel, The Handmaid's Tale, is published in 85.
Okay.
Which is just don't let the TV show fool you. She hand waved away black women in the very beginning of the book, and that's just white women. Like, this is just a white woman issue. So I really, really like, and then I just like how unapologetically radical it is. Like, the film ends with them storming the World Trade Center.
I know how was it that the film opens up with visions of the World Trade Center as well? Because it takes in front of that.
Yeah. So I actually really enjoyed it. Yeah, I actually really enjoyed it.
And everything that you point out is true, and everything that you point out is there in the film. It is, and maybe it was, I don't know what it was. For some reason, while I can recognize that all of that was there, the presentation of it, and I'm not talking about the quality of the film. I'm not talking about that at all. I'm just talking about the film itself as it was edited and put together, and that story was presented to me. It just did not hit me. A lot of things hit me as a bit of a word, like I said, like a word salad. Like, and I can appreciate also that in 83, you don't know whether or not you're going to get another bite of the apple. So yeah, you are going to try and touch on as many things as possible, because of how, the radicalness of the film and the filmmaking, the radicalness of the subject matter as well. So I can appreciate all of that. Yet for some reason, it just didn't hit me. Would I recommend the movie? Yes, I would. So just cutting to the end, I would recommend the movie as something for people to watch, because I do think there is a thoughtfulness behind there. And I'm also open enough and willing enough to to say that there's shit here for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it because I sense it. I'm reaching for it. Maybe for whatever reason I can't get it. It's not hitting me, but I appreciate that. Maybe it will hit you. So I would definitely still recommend it to people, but it's just something about it. It's just the disjointedness of that story. I just didn't think that the story. There were moments, and again, this is a stylistic choice, and maybe it's also part documentary. There were too many moments to me when the story or the meaning of the story was being told to me as opposed to being shown to me. That's the way it came across to me.
I don't think you and I are contradicting one another at all. I think I just decided to ignore that part of it early. In a lot of ways, it reminds me of Wild Style. like I don't think by traditional standards of film storytelling, Wild Style is that good.
No, it's not.
But I think there's so much in Wild Style to pull out where, and I've actually said it a few times on our show. I forget Wild Style is a movie.
Right. You think it's just
right. I think it's just a documentary because the narrative is barely there. And I think in a lot of ways this narrative is the narrative is an afterthought.
Right.
Like,
and I think
I really do get the sense that the narrative was an afterthought for all of this other stuff. And much like you, I'm going to recommend it. I actually think this is a super important film, but it's almost like something you should take in a class and not a film class. Like, not a film class.
No. I'm curious.
Study class or something, but yeah.
I'm curious. Thinking of that, we don't usually give away where we saw the films that we're reviewing, but I'm interested in where you saw this film.
I got that trial on Amazon Prime, so it was like on Fandor.
Okay, so I wonder if you got what I got. No, you probably didn't, because I watched it on Canopy with a K, and Canopy is actually a service by which you can stream movies and I believe music as well. I'm not sure, but definitely movies, and I think there's TV shows up there, and you can stream them for free. But what you have to have is a library card. So you input your library card, and then you can stream it, and which speaks to what you were saying about this film. This is definitely a film, not necessarily for a film class. Like, this, it's good learning for people.
Look, again, and just sort of my own self-growth, frankly. I've been reading a lot of Black feminist text lately, so like I've been reading a lot of Audre Lorde and a lot of Patricia Hill Collins, and so much of what they talk about, because even in the 80s, they were talking about this tension between the different parts of feminism. So, not even like we all kind of go towards white feminism, but, understand there are class tensions, there are regional tensions, there's tensions as far as, I'm saying regional, but like not just in the United States, but between women in different countries. There is tensions between lesbians, and then the way all of that kind of goes together. And it really did seem like, while all this conversation was going on, because a lot of this stuff was written that I'm reading in the early 80s when this film was being made, I get the sense that the filmmakers were paying attention to that conversation.
Right.
So that in 2021, where we can argue about how things have gotten better or gotten worse, it's a really fascinating manifesto to me, because in a lot of ways, this is an example of it done right. Like I'm a woman, you're a woman. We come from these different perspectives, but our gender is the commonality. We need to be allies. We need to do this, and you never ever see it work. But I thought that, again, there was a thoughtfulness to this film where Lizzie Borden was attempting to demonstrate how it could work. Like, I love the fact that in 1983, and you mentioned it, street harassment of women was acknowledged as a challenge that women were facing, alongside issues of reproductive rights, alongside issues of housing rights, alongside issues of work rights, like you said, alongside issues of of acknowledging the monetary value of quote unquote housework.
Mm-hmm.
Like all of this was kind of grouped together and articulated in a way that I, that I think is important. Like you know, maybe like we do a black podcast, so we don't do the feminist podcast. Maybe it's a bunch of feminist movies that have done this. But as an example of Afrofuturism, as people who watch science fiction and read science fiction, I found it refreshing. Like I really liked it, in spite of all of the very good critiques of the narrative that we're raising, if you will.
Well, don't let us be your judge, ladies and gentlemen. Check out Born in Flames.
Wait. I know you know your order structure. Remember, Bree Fox. She came for the professionalism. So let's keep it. So Lynn, I know you said it, but so Lynn, would you recommend this film?
Yes, I would recommend the film. Vince, would you recommend the film?
I would. I would recommend this film. I absolutely would.
All right. So, if I may, check out Born in Flames, ladies and gentlemen. It is streaming somewhere where you can check it out for free. Trust me. Check it out. And let us know your thoughts. Let us know your thoughts on Born in Flame. You can email us. Feel free to email us at MichauxMission. Email us at MichauxMission@gmail.com. All your thoughts and concerns about our review. You can also like and follow us on all the social medias, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Subscribe to the Michaud Mission at Michaud Mission on all your social medias. And go to the MichauxMission.com, our website, where you can listen to each and every one of our past shows, 2 Men, 1 Podcast, every black film ever made, and hit swag, where you can check out all of the cool designs that we have coming your way by way of our good friends at TeePublic. I just did a new design for Afrofuturistic April, so you can check that out. Right. And if you want to know what that looks like, you can subscribe to the Michaud Mission Dispatch, our weekly newsletter, so you can find out all the comings and goings here on the Michaud Mission. Before we tell you what we're reviewing next week, I invite you to check out The Podglomerate, thepodglomerate.com, curated podcast for your listening pleasure. We actually featured one of their podcasts just this past Friday on our feed, Table Flipping. It was flipping tables, man. It's a cool podcast that reviews the portrayal of women in reality TV. A very interesting and cool podcast. You'll want to check that out, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Next week here on the Michaud Mission. Oh, look, it's my turn again.
How about that?
And next week, Vince, let me tell you what we're going to be watching. We're going to be watching a cool film from 2018, directed by Julia Hart, also written by Julia Hart with Jordan Horowitz. And it stars Sanaya Sidney, Lorraine Toussaint.
All right.
And Google and Patharal is a favorite here on the Michaud Mission, as we review Fast Color.
All right. Afrofuturism April continues.
Yes, it does. It's and I am very, very much looking forward to that film. All right. I guess that's about it. So
maybe you're loopy from the shop.
I'm not. I really am not. So please, HBO, give us another chance. Anyway. Until next week, everybody, I hope everyone stays safe and be well. He's Vince. I'm Len. And I knew there was one more thing. If you are listening, enjoying our stream, and you, for one reason or another, don't check out the Michaud Mission actual podcast, why you are missing it, because this month for Afrofuturistic April, we are premiering a new theme music by one very talented local producer, Alexa Gold. It's called Head Noddin'. That's what she calls the track. And it will be the new theme music, all hours, for the Michaud mission. So we don't have to worry about that cease and desist letter anymore, Vince. It's no longer a threat.
I was kind of looking forward to it. Like I wanted to get it in and frame it. Like I was hoping to be on like 40 Acres and a Mule letterhead.
Well, maybe he'll listen to our review of the Five Bloods.
Like an angry scrawl, like an angry Spike Lee scrawl at the bottom. But okay.
Yeah, he'll write it in a Sharpie.
now that's the thing you forgot.
That is the thing I forgot.
Of note that's going on. Nothing going on this weekend you might want to share with the missionary?
Oh, yes. I try to keep, I try not to cross the streams.
Hey, man. This is big.
Yes, it is big. The week has come, ladies and gentlemen. This weekend, it is the week where myself and my fellow Black Tribbles will be getting together live for the world record longest live podcast this weekend on April 16th through the 18th, live in person and streaming on Lunch Table, which is the cool streaming platform presented by Blavity.com. We will be streaming 60 straight hours of podcasting starting Friday at 9 a.m. and going all the way till Sunday at 9 p.m. Promises to be a whole lot of fun. And my partner, my fellow man of Michaud, Vince Williams, will be joining us on Sunday afternoon as he helps referee the Great Chocolate Cake Race.
Yeah.
Which is going to be insane as we attempt to eat Camille's confections in world record time. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hope you can take the time to check out some of the shenanigans that we have coming for you. If you haven't listened to my crew, the Black Tribbles, we get it in. We have a good time. We have a real good time. All right, we're geeky and we have fun. All right. Well, thank you, Vince. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to promote that.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you. All right. Now we got to get out of here.
All right.
He's Vince. I'm Len. And in parting, we say,
we'll see you.